is so beneficent. All praises be to the Most High. What up, Jason D? Street Life. Chris White. I really have no words to describe. Get down, Kevin Brown. Create. Michael Duvall. Lost Soul. I know what it is. I mean, freedom ain't free, right? Hey, Casual, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one like this. It go rah, 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 rah. Allegory, nursery stories. These lines have been inspired by sitting and politicking with young Stormy. Conversations of returning to greatness, seeing through fakeness, murdering young Mike Brown.
Hey, good morning, Grand Rising guys and goddesses, queens and kings, ladies and gentlemen, for another edition of Hood Revolution. Before I get into the recap of this segment, which is the gender reckoning, I am going to, of course, have my cohorts, my constituents, introduce themselves if this is your first time viewing this. So please proceed.
They panicked, didn't understand it, couldn't comprehend it. The voodoo we do, that melanin magic, that black fantastic calendars, days of the month, supreme mathematics, sun, moon, and star bars, galaxies and quasars, comets, meteoric, they comment so many over. That's why they run up, gun up, mace, cuff, and choke holders. But hold up,
I'm Riri,
just how rulers gets.
aka Black, the rebel of the group.
Haters, I see you. If I was you, I would wanna be me too. It's the return of the pyramids. Read the hieroglyphics, kid. They copycats, try to do it exactly how we did.
I'm probably her main patient because I'm the asshole of the bunch.
Michael Jackson, Nipsey Russell shit. No cowardly lying, just lying as I am. More flavor in all.
And I am the antagonist / conspiracy theory and your host for this segment, Earl Smith. Coming to you from KCMO. We're happy to have you anywhere in the world, but you are here with us, hopefully. So, to get a quick recap on the second segment of the gender reckoning, where we left off is we went in talking about everyone's opinions or experiences, or as far as their what they practice in their home, or what they think should be practiced as far as gender roles between a man and a woman. Who seems to be more emotional, who seems to be more logical. In the last segment, you're going to want to see the first one, because you could see in real time some of the things that are experienced between couples within the dynamic of our group. And y'all gonna want to watch it because it went live. It went live. Dr. Ron G was administering, y'all know what I mean. She was feeding. She was feeding us a medicine called truth, and sometimes it don't always taste good. It goes down bad, and you have a adverse reaction. With the communication, the other key is comprehension and understanding, because there was a misunderstanding from what we were receiving, from what Dr. Ron G was giving, and then there was a misunderstanding, but it was still all love. It's just that sometimes you got to get through the storm to get to the sunshine. Can you stand the rain? Okay, so let's get here. Let's jump into this, y'all. Let's jump into this second part, in which I'm trying to, in my opinion, I'll start it off in where, so we can get guided on this, where I think that part of, hey, that's all right. That's why it's Hood Revolution. Don't even worry about that. We're going in, and after talking about and getting past on what we think as far as gender roles, is we're getting to what I think is some of the main causes between the division, where some people will look at it as a battle of the sexes between Black men and women, and breaking up the relationships, and we're not getting along. Firstly, I think that it's part caused by the feminist movement that was started a while ago by white women. Let's just be real. Up in a place called Seneca Falls, long time ago. Now, see, and so while I was researching, while I was doing some research, I really was learning a lot about it because I learned that there were like 4 kinds of feminism that they identified. And y'all let me know if I missed any one of them, but I'll just read them off and we give you some of this information so you can even go look at this information yourself and get more in depth with it because we're trying to really get through and really analyze, break down, and dissect this thing. So there's liberal feminism, there's radical feminism, there is Marxist and socialist feminism, which you really want to look at because they're saying the 2 Black women that are heading the Black Lives Movement, they are categorizing them as Marxist and socialist feminists, but that's not our subject today. Cultural feminism. So those are the 4 that I was looking at. And then, so I'm going to let you guys go, but let me say this. I think that in my theory, so you guys know where I'm at, is that I think what I understood is that the feminist movements, did it start with white women? Did it start with them wanting to? Well, no. Let me say this. Let me not discredit it because it, it did have a purpose. Well, the purpose was they were talking about reproductive rights, domestic violence, equal pay.
But it started with wanting to vote, right? That was the original, kind of, a little bit. No.
This goes all the way back. Feminism goes all the way back to the temperance.
So check it out. So what I was seeing is that because I was looking at what was the purpose? What was the purpose? What were they trying to get accomplished? What were their focuses? And it said that it was a kind of a political position, and it was charged up to show respects and reform as far as reproductive rights, domestic violence, equal pay, sexual harassment, sexual violence. And I'm not saying that Black people had a paradise or a utopia. I'm saying that especially as far as white men being in control of the system, to be honest, white women didn't even have the right to vote. Okay. So I want you to realize that Black men, so let me be specific. People don't understand when I say, when people just make the general statement and say, well, Black people were given the right to vote before white women. Actually, Black men were given the right to vote before all women. But just taking it as far as the people that are in control, which are the Caucasians. What's up to my white brothers and sisters? If you're out there watching, you are welcome to watch. Nothing against you. We're just speaking truth. They were in control of the system, but you have to understand that they were chauvinistic to a point that they didn't even look at their women equal enough to vote with them and gave Black men the right to vote before them. I don't think we had when we came along, like I said, we were slaves together with Black women. We came out the mud together with Black women. We went through that struggle with Black women. So I don't think we had a problem with our women vote. The thing is that the white women had a problem with them not being able to vote. So they started a feminist movement, and somehow y'all had a problem with y'all men. I'm not saying we were perfect, but I don't think we had a problem with our women like that, to where you can't do what I do. I'm voting, you can't vote because you have nothing to say. I don't think I want to say I don't think we had that problem. Y'all had the problem. So why did y'all come and include Black women and make it seem like we had a problem? So what do you guys think about that? Because I think that is very pivotal in where we are even today as a residual effect, a perpetuated effect of some of the problems we're experiencing today and symptoms we're experiencing today with thinking that Black women are against Black men and Black men are against Black women. What do you guys think about that?
Okay, if I could, I need to give a little bit of information here. Okay. First of all, the feminist movement did not start in the 70s. All that all that Earl is talking about right now is what we would call the cultural wave of feminism, which happened in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Okay, that's what he's referring to. Feminism as a political movement actually started in what was called the temperance movement way back before prohibition. Feminism became a political force and was it precipitated prohibition. The reason that the women forced prohibition on this country, and that's what happened, that was the first feminist movement, is because in the temperance movement, right before prohibition, white men, we didn't have TV back then. So a lot of this free time that we have now, we didn't have back then. So unfortunately, white men were going to the bars in the middle of the day, getting drunk as hell, coming home beating on their wives. Now this became a phenomenon across the country. There's even a story of a famous white woman that went to like 30 bars and wrecked the bars, like made total messes because they were getting their ass beat. So then feminism turned into a political movement by eradicating liquor out of this country so that they can stop getting their ass beat. Let's start there. Okay, we have to start there. Then we talk about the suffragette, y'all know what I mean, okay? White women voting, okay? And that had a lot to do with some of the wars that were going on because white women at that point had to work on a bigger scale than they had before. So now these are elements where white women are entering the workforce to support the men who are going back and forth from war, all these different kind of things. And now we're getting harassed by the boss. Now things that white women had never experienced before were being experienced because they were now in the workforce supporting their men who were at war. Okay, so the 70s was another set of feminism that occurred because of the things that Earl said. Equal pay, we didn't have the right to our own sexual reproductive rights, which means, now let's break this down, y'all. It's not sexual rights. It's that we had to go through a man for everything, either your father or your husband. And if you didn't have either one of those, you were kind of out of luck. So you couldn't own property without a man's signature. You could not open a bank account without your husband's or father's signature. You could not have a credit card. This is the 70s. You could not have a credit card. You could not get your tubes tied. That went all the way until the 90s. Okay, that you could not get your tubes tied without your father or your husband's signature. So these are the things that they work to change from there. Okay, so that's just a little background information on a couple of the movements. That's not comprehensive. I don't want anybody to be like, she left this out, she left that out. Well, I left a lot out because we need to keep our responses short.
Okay, with anybody. My bad.
Why
I'm gonna let y'all go. It's just the detail. I did find out that it says formally. It says formally the movement was started in Seneca Falls in the convention in 1848.
There you go. There you go.
Then in 1902,
right.
What was drafted was the Seneca Falls Declaration.
That's right.
And so what Dr. Ron G is saying is very true, and she,
so
very
the
she brought us up to date.
I bring up that information is because feminism is looked at as such a horrible thing now, and it really didn't start off that way. I mean, I don't want my ass beat, and if I'm to stop getting my ass beat, we join a movement, then we join a movement. So we have to talk about things in context. Now, when the 70s hit, see, before we weren't asking for too much, but when the 70s hit, it started to look like we wanted to be on par with men. Mm-hmm. Equal pay, our rights, our body, our choice, these kind of things. And there was a big rift between women factions. Okay? Even the women bucked against each other because there was a section of society that didn't want the Equal Rights Act to go through, which is what the 70s was about. The Equal Rights Act, look it up, it's the ERA. They even got big shows out about it now. And there was a section of women that wanted complete and utter rights. Okay. And so there's a lot that goes into it, that when we say things like the feminist movement is why the black man and the white black woman don't get along, okay, that don't sound very intelligent. We need to stop that, okay? Stop that right now. Stop that right now. Everybody gets a right to be equal under the law. And that's what 70s feminism was about, being equal under the law.
Got that. So we got the history down and the kind of the different segments. I'm interested with all these animated looks on her face. I'm very interested in knowing what Riri has to say about this whole thing. Like your glasses, Dr. Ronnie.
And I put my educated glasses on. I don't know what sounds good educated about that. That sounds like
do I need to get my readers on?
I'm trying to be that loud.
Good. We got a glasses war popping up. Hey, glasses war. Okay, but Riri, what you got to say? Because you had some comical looks going on in the background. I'm very interested in knowing what your little mind is thinking right now.
So I'm gonna go back to what Earl said at the end. He was like that Black women kind of joined in this feminist movement because you were saying, you made a comment like, why did we get in it? Like, there was no issues in the Black household, is what you kind of said.
No. I didn't say we had to
well, repeat what you said at the end. Repeat what you said at the end.
What I said before Ms.
Ranji.
The white woman, that was a white woman initiative. Okay? That was a white woman. Do the history. You don't see there's no Black woman they talk about in Seneca Falls.
We were kind of enslaved.
I was researching where the hell we even came in at.
We were kind of slaves when it started in Seneca Falls.
Right, so how the hell we get involved? We were slaves.
Everybody named the corners, because Earl, when you said that, what I felt you meant was that you were saying we didn't have that same power fight because we were feeling that our women were already equal to us. So this was an initiative started by white women who were being forced into an inferior role by their dominant gender, I guess you say. It's an example of, men and women hearing two different things and they wanting to fight and we wanting to understand.
All right, so let's go back to that. I disagree with that because I feel like the structure of the Black family was way different back in the day when the woman was not in the workforce. The man did control everything, and it was a bunch of women getting their ass whooped back in the day too by Black men. Brothers.
Cherie, I need to say that historically, Black women have always been in the workforce. Wait, Eric, I have to say that Black women were always part of the workforce, Cherie, always. Black women went from slavery into the workforce, okay? Because the Black man was under such oppression that he could not garner, and this is universal. This isn't individual. In general, Black women always was in the workforce. Always. We have never been stay-at-home moms.
Yes,
We've
they
never
have.
Been stay-at-home moms.
Okay.
No, we have not.
In the 50s, I disagree because in the 50s, and I know that because I have family. My grandmother and her sisters, they were stay-at-home wives. They never worked. They husbands, they went out. A lot of families that I know from the 50s, a ton of families that I know, when the Black family in the 40s and the 50s, the Black man went to work, he provided for his family. And he would come home and he'd bring his check at the end of the week and he'd give it to the wife, take care of all the stuff. So that is not true. Because the way that I know that my mother and her people were raised, they went to Catholic school. This is when Black families owned homes. They had communities. They did in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. Yes. So the Black woman was not always part of the workforce. I won't say that they were not ever part of the workforce in general, but I know a lot of older people, women, that never was in the workforce, and some never learned how to drive, didn't have to learn how to drive because their man always did it. I'm just saying that's what I do know. So that's not the truth. Now in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, it did start to change. The Black women did start going into the workforce because the dynamics of what Black men were doing to provide for their family changed. The drugs came on the scene, men started to be incarcerated, families started to be separated. And then that's when the Black women really got into the workforce. So that's what I know from my upbringing. Before that, I don't know. I'm just going off of the older people that I know in my family. I know some women that they work was they home and taking care of the children.
Well, I'd like to say, so personally, I don't, just based on history, I can't say that I know whether or not Black women were or were not in the working field such as white women were. But I feel like just looking at the history that I do know, I don't think necessarily that the Black woman had the same plight that the white woman did. Now, I disagree with that, whether we worked or whether we didn't, or whether they worked more or whatever. I know based on history, white men went to war, and yes, white women, you see the publications of white women having to go out to the work field versus during that time period, it could have not been the same for Black women because we weren't noticeable. So maybe we just didn't see that being portrayed in media and ads and things like that. But either way, I think our focus would have been more on building our families. We're thinking about this period post-slavery, post the Revolutionary War. What is it? What is the period called? Reformation, whatever. That period.
Reconstruction.
Yes, Reconstruction. Thank you, Cherie. Thank you. So I'm looking at Reconstruction, and I felt like during that time period, the plight of the Black woman was to unify her family. You got to look at, we were just moving out of slavery. We were just being freed from being slaves. So many of our families were displaced because they were removed from our original master's land, and we have displaced children, displaced husbands, displaced wives. So I don't think personally for the Black woman that movement that wasn't our focal movement. That was the white woman's plight and not necessarily ours. And I feel like when they felt like they could go no further, they pulled us into that fight with them. And they wanted us because everybody knows with numbers, you're stronger. So I felt like when white women felt like they could not get ahead or get the things that they wanted from their white men, they brought in Black women and say, hey, sister, come on, join us. Let's fight this fight for feminism. And that's my personal opinion about it. I'm certain there are documents, there's proof, there's evidence that may say otherwise, but that's my personal belief and opinion.
Thank you, Chef V. Eric, it sounded like you was going to say something before. So, Eric, what did you lose your thought?
No, but I just think the whole basis of what we were talking about is totally different than what you were actually introducing. Because I think that you were more complimenting the relationship between the Black man and the Black woman during that time frame than kind of saying that there was a wedge between the two. Our path in this country has been different from their path in this country because in some respects, white women have always had some form of freedom that we never had, that we're still striving for, and I think that, a lot of our movements have been hijacked in order to advance them in society, like affirmative action. That's labeled as a movement for people of color, but it was nowhere near that. The biggest beneficiary of that movement were white women in America, more so than anybody else. It allowed them to have better wages in the workplace, better wages, better interaction in life in general. You know what I mean? I just don't think, and I might be wrong, but I just don't think that you started this, by saying it was basically a gender war. I think you were more so defining the interaction between the white male and the white female, and then the black male and his queen. I mean, I might be wrong. That's where I thought you were going.
I mean that would be correct because I think you had a good assessment of what I was trying to communicate. Um, what I like I said, I'm not saying we had a utopia because, like Cherie was saying, even from my personal experience, my grandmother on my mother's side, she felt no, and I'm not saying individuals aren't different, but she took pride in the fact that she took care of the house. Like she didn't need it, she didn't want a car because she felt like she didn't need one. My grandfather had one, but like Cherie said, and you guys were saying, he go work and he bring the check home, and she makes sure everything is glued together. And she took pride in like keeping the family together, raising the children, making sure he was ready to go out to war, basically. Um, Now, and so I can speak objectively too, because like I said, we didn't have a black utopia because my grandmother on my father's side went through some things, but still, she was still based in back in that time. And I'm not saying times don't change. She was still very ingrained in I take care of the home. Not that I'm barefooted, not that you just knocking me up and I'm having babies, not that like you mister in Color Purple. I take care of the family. You go get the money. You bring the money back to me. You know why I know what's going on? Because I'm at the house. You know how I know how much the bills are? Because I'm at the house. I know how much lights is used. I know how much gas is used. I know how much food goes out. She has the inventory of the house. So he needs her in order for him to be him. So I think that was their work, and it wasn't as far as monetary for them. And I want the same car he got, and I want it. They didn't feel slighted. It was just that I don't think we could help but be that way and be structural because of where we came from. Black men were never in control of the structure that oppressed women as a whole. We never controlled that narrative. So I'm not saying that Dr. Ranji doesn't have some points. I'm just saying that I just feel like we were never in control of that. And all we did is somehow get assimilated into their system of doing things. And like E was saying, I do feel like that feminism thing is similar to even the Black Lives Movement thing. Somehow, listen, I know there are Black homosexuals. I know, no problem. Peace to the homosexual community. You're tuning in. Here's the thing. This is Black Lives Matter. Y'all got to separate them. Don't use the momentum and the plight that Black people have been going through for years. And now we have some momentum, and somehow now you want to get on the coattails of that and then push your stuff through. Because even, I don't want to get off subject, but Biden was like in his first 100 days, he plans to pass legislation for the LGBT community. What are you talking about? There was a whole Black Lives movement going on. In your first 100 days, it's not a headline on the legislation you're going to pass for Black people? That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I need a quick rebuttal because I need for my team to be careful with fact checking and saying it's one thing for me to state opinion. It's another thing for me to present facts to the community at large and us as a group. I don't say facts that are untrue. I don't do that. So when I tell you that Black women were always in the workforce, they were. Now we have to understand what the definition of workforce means, because the statistics will show you people that were aligned with the state, getting taxes taken out of their check, getting Social Security, this kind of stuff. Those are what count in the statistical numbers over history as people who were in the workforce. You have to understand that our women went through 20 or 30 years where they were in the workforce but weren't counted. So we're talking about the Southern maids. They were never counted in the workforce because they were getting paid what we call under the table. They did not have Social Security benefits. They did not rack up any of the employment benefits that men got at the time. We also have to be careful with what we call in the business anecdotal evidence, which means I know somebody that's different than the mass, so that makes it untrue. When we're talking about a mass of people, we have to go with the majority. We cannot go with people's individual family situations because those don't necessarily factor into the majority. So there were several women in my family in the 50s that didn't work either. That doesn't mean that there weren't millions and millions and millions of women, Black women, who were in the workforce and historically weren't really allowed. Not only were the white woman's plight not necessarily our plight, but they weren't our privileges either. We didn't get those privileges as Black people and Black women, period. So we need to be very careful as to what we put out. Personal experience is one thing, and that has a place. But when we're talking about the majority of individuals, we have to go with the majority conditions and not individual conditions. You guys understand what I'm saying?
I don't feel like that because this is a podcast. So this is me talking my opinion, and this is a conversation that we are having. So yeah, my personal experiences do matter despite whatever factual evidence that you have.
They do matter. They absolutely matter, but you can't say things that facts that I said was untrue when they're not untrue. They are true, but they're not true for everyone.
Well, yeah, but Dr. V, Chef V, what do you think?
So, okay, so yeah, so based on your what you stated, Ronnie, so do you feel like, because I base mine just on personal opinion. Like I said, I don't know the statistics of everything, but based on the stats that you've brought into the equation, what is your personal opinion on? Do you feel like, because I think that's what Earl was getting at, he felt like the plight of the white woman and the Black woman were different, but they brought us in. And I said, I believe that same thing. So with your personal opinion, with the facts involved in everything, how do you feel like? Do you feel like the feminist movement that started, that we've been discussing, all the levels of the different various ones, do you feel like genuinely that plight that was started by white women, did it always include Black women? Did Black women always feel that way? Were we on that bandwagon with them because we felt that way, or were we brought, like, kind of ushered into it by happenstance because they needed to?
And I want to be clear, personal opinion and personal experience is very important. It's where most people get their information from. It's where most people get their belief system from. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is we have to also pay attention to the group. And if the group overall is experiencing things that we may not have seen in our own family, that doesn't negate that as a group and how all that affects all of us, even though maybe we didn't see that in our particular families or personal experience. That's one. Two, I don't really feel my way through these things because there are so many factors that went into that time period that it's hard for me to say yes or no either way. I know that the feminist movement was used as a political football. I know that the gay movement has been used as the LGBT movement has been used as a political football. And now we're all just minorities, right? I get that. I also don't want to act like in 1970, which is part of the modern times. That's a modern time. That's not, the past. That is the modern time, which would be considered modern times. Women were in the work field at that time. Women, Black women, were having their asses grabbed at work. Black women could not get birth control without the signature of a man. Black women could not get a credit card. It's not that there was a different set of conditions for white women, and then in America, there are a different set of conditions for Black women. What it was there was a certain oppressive conditions for white women, and then we had triple, double, quadruple oppressive conditions for ourselves. So I can't really answer your question in a way that is like, yes, we were right, yes, we were wrong, because we were also experiencing those things as Black women. We were just also experiencing a whole bunch of other stuff that white women wasn't. And which one was more important, being a woman or being Black? I don't know. I don't know.
I feel
Now,
like,
before the okay, go ahead, V.
I feel like I don't know either, but in my heart and in my mind, just based on what I see as a common, just based on what I see, what I can visualize and what I can see as far as um, um, media that we can trace historically that is in front of my eyes, I just don't feel like the Black woman necessarily felt that way the entire time that all of this was going on. I can see different. I see it different just based on what media has put before my eyes and what I read in history books, and that's not to say that that's the end all be all, because I haven't read every publication. I haven't studied every era. I haven't, but just based on what I can see. And like Cherie said, based on personal experience, the stories that I hear from my family members, and I have family that is rooted in deep South Mississippi, deep South Louisiana, like very Southern women. And when I hear their stories and the stories of my cousins and the stories of my aunts and that span generations, I just don't feel like that is the case. Like, you cannot get me to believe that was the entire case. And like you said, yes, there are the statistics that prove that the same things were happening to Black women. But I feel like because we were just out of slavery, there was so much more that we experienced during slavery that those things were not our number one plight. That's just how I feel. I don't think those things were our number one plight. For white women weren't getting beat in slavery. They weren't getting their children taken away from them. They weren't getting their families separated. So in their minds, that was the number one thing for them, because they weren't treated as an equal. And outside of slavery, this Black man that the white man just said wasn't shit, wasn't nobody, and was beaten to a pulp, they pushed that Black man ahead of those white women. So those white women took regard to that fight and made that theirs. When they couldn't get what they wanted fully, that's when they drug us into that narrative. So that's what I'm saying about that. But again, like I said, I know the stats, the media, all of that, it says other things, but I'm just saying that's just my personal opinion.
I'm not saying your guys' opinion is wrong. I'm here to present I haven't presented an opinion. So when Earl said some of her points are okay, well, I haven't presented an opinion for my points to be right or wrong. The facts are the facts are the facts. Now, Black women were in the workforce, point blank period, from the time of slavery. Sometimes that was recorded, sometimes it wasn't. But we have always been alongside our Black men working. Historically, white women, not so much. They got put on a pedestal. They got to, do experience different ways of relating to their families, blah, 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 blah. So I haven't presented an opinion. I don't know if we got dragged into the mist and blinded by the light. I don't know. All I know is that we have to present the facts to our audience. And then after everybody knows the facts, you have an informed opinion. And my issue with making sure that we all have an informed opinion is that we don't fall into these traps trying to explain the crisis of Black women versus Black men and why there's a Black. If we know all the facts, then maybe we can come to a solution. But we can't say feminism is the reason that us Black men and Black women, there are a lot of reasons, and feminism is at the bottom of the scale, okay? Because feminism had nothing to do with the establishment giving Black women jobs in the 90s over Black men. That was not feminism. That was another plight to keep the brother down and make him economically irrelevant to his woman and his family. That was not feminism. So we have to talk about a lot of the factors that go into why we are where we are today, instead of just the ones that make us feel good.
Now here comes the conspiracy theory. Y'all woke him up. Y'all woke up the conspiracy. Okay? Now, is there a difference between workforce and slavery? Workforce and indentured servant? No. Because when we talk about Black women, you gave me some homework. I'm very interested to see in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 30s,
Black women were
what
going to
black
work,
women's
honey.
industry was. Who was hiring them?
Maids.
Because what
Maids.
That's
in
what they called it.
slavery.
Maids.
That's indentured
Maids.
service. That's not
That's
workforce.
right.
Okay.
And you getting paid under the
and
table.
sometimes they weren't even giving money. They were giving old clothes. They were giving, there's nothing to tax. They were giving food for their family. Here, take those leftovers for cleaning my house and taking care of my babies. That's not workforce. That's slavery. Also,
But understand
brought up
that's
another
still
point.
work.
Hold on. V brought up
Okay.
another point. Here goes the conspiracy part. I don't believe the goddamn media now. Whose facts are they? Most of us, we got things passed down through our grandparents. That was our information, our families, our generation. Those are our facts. No, I'm not saying that there are no facts, but we never controlled the narrative of the media. We never controlled the information that goes out. Black women feel this way too. How you know that? Because we saying it. So I can take the numbers for what they are because information and knowledge is power, and it is pivotal that you know the information that's being put out. But the conspiracy theorists in me, which I'm not going to say is always valid, because that word conspiracy, we can even trace that back to a white man for an agenda that was put out there. But just because somebody says conspiracy, it means conspiring. All I'm saying is that there are some good points being made, and you need to know the information that's going out. But is it necessarily our facts?
Right.
I don't know.
Because there was a whole bunch of Caucasian hoes too. Where was they getting the workforce? And they been selling coochie since the beginning of time. That shit ain't documented.
Well, I mean, money went to the house, though. Money went. So whether or not they were documented, undocumented, whether or not we saw them in the workforce or not, the point is whether or not they were paid under the table, indentured servitude, because we know they didn't get no work benefits, no Social Security, no work insurance, none of that. Got hurt on the job, just sent home, that kind of stuff. Even though we know all of that, it still was working alongside my husband and take, because if I get this food, then that's less food that we have to buy. And if my husband can't afford it, he can't afford it. So we have to take that into consideration. You can't tell me that my mom, my personal mother, working under the table for an entire year, was not in the workforce just because it was undocumented. You can't tell her because she went to work every day. So,
okay,
we just have to just keep the facts.
Kind of relative.
But your mother would not be in the traditionalist era. It's the era when you come in like millennials, Generation X's, baby boomers, so on and so forth. That all still played a part in how the movement went on and how things in the workforce how things in the home ended up. Because
I agree.
During our parents' time, the baby boomers' time, more people got out. Women started to educate themselves, for one, which is probably another reason why more Black women entered into the feminist movement by educating themselves. And then going into the workforce, like I said, you can't exit out the fact that all of our Black men started incarcerating all of our Black men. So the Black women did not really have the choice but to go out into the workforce, which in fact that did systematically change up the relationship and the role inside of the home.
Exactly. Right. So all that is, and that she brings up such a good point, is that there were so many other factors that went into who we are today as a couple, that I can't believe we're still stuck on feminism, you Black bitches.
I don't think it's something we should be involved in. Now hold on, wait a minute. Can we get some asshole in it? I ain't heard from the asshole.
I just threw some asshole in there.
I need some asshole. Eric, where the asshole at? E, where you at, man? Where you at?
Hey, bro, I just been sitting there cracking up on this whole conversation, because this whole time this gender reckoning been going on. It's been a single gender warfare. I just been sitting there cracking up on this shit. Hey, talk about emotional. It's been some emotions displayed on this motherfucker today. Hey, but
just like the ones from last week, or what?
I'm about to say, because who just got emotional?
You didn't see me put up some popcorn? I had some popcorn a minute ago. I was just in there just doing. I'm like, hey, this is a good one. Nah, man, but on the real, I mean, I'm with Doc. I'm with Doc on this one. I mean, being caught up on the whole feminist movement, we understand that it's just another distraction. It really is just another distraction in our life to keep us off a progressive path to what we're really trying to do. And I mean, whether it be, I think that at some point white women did realize, hey, these Negroes is getting some freedoms and responsibilities that we ain't got. And we got white privilege working on our side. So why can they do more than us at this moment? And I think that kind of propels things forward. But I mean, the whole fact-based situation here is that we're all being held down by an oppressive system of white males. That's just facts. We're all being held down by an oppressive system of white males. Feminist movement ain't gonna change that. This conversation on the path that we on ain't gonna change that. I'm back to what you say, Dr. Ron G? How you say we're gonna change this whole thing? What was that you said?
Today?
She muted right now. No, you ain't said. You ain't said today. But what was that you said? What is it gonna take to change all this?
Oh, resources. Just separate. I mean, personally, I believe it's time to separate. We've done enough integrating.
Yeah,
the only thing that's going to stop this is a whole Black community self-sustaining. Period.
Right.
Period.
That's what I
feel. That's it. And until you guys, and when I say you guys, I am talking about Black men. Until Black men are able to control their own community.
Hey, she took the sensitive approach with us today, bro. I'm talking about Black men, so don't get emotional.
But that is, you guys got a good segue into this part that I know we're gonna have to be, but until we get our own resources, which brings me to welfare, the welfare system, which was my other part, other than feminism, which I agree has been a distraction.
You talking about white aid?
But welfare, I'm like,
white aid?
Yeah. And I come from it from a part of where, and me and Dr. Ranji had spoke on this, and I'm excited to hear everybody's opinion on it, because I'm going to say what affects, or in the Black man's mind, some of the adverse parts of it, where she can't have those benefits, or we can't get those. It's not that it act like it's impossible for a Black man and a Black woman to be going through a hard time together. Mm-hmm. So if she's going to get welfare or assistance, that Black man cannot be there, or he can't be in the proximity of the home, because there's no way that they will be able to go through that together. And if he's there, there's no way she's getting that assistance. I don't know how much I agree with that. And then let's be real, welfare, as far as the institution it is, let's not act like it was started for us. We don't ever have anything started for us. We're talking about the Depression. We're talking about, so that's still putting white folks forward as far as what they were going through. We just always happen to get some crumbs off of it, or get some benefit off of it, but it's never for us. And then knowing that it is more likely for a white man to get some assistance and jump back into the workforce, it's not that easy for a Black man. We're not getting as many opportunities as the white man gets. So for his family to get welfare, he's probably going to find a job sooner than the Black man is. And I'm not saying, oh, woe is me. I'm just speaking on the facts of how things are today. So when my family goes on welfare, I have to be separated from my family until my Black ass can find some work.
Okay, let me before you please don't, I have to, because before y'all say anything else, please, because you're gonna say things that are not historically true, and it's gonna make y'all look, and I don't want y'all to look like that. Please. That the man had to leave the home rule about welfare. One, that was across the board. White people, Asian people, black people. It wasn't just black people.
Yeah.
It was across the board. Second, it was only in a few states, mostly Southern, because Southern Democrats at the time, and when I say Democrats, I mean the Republicans, but they were called Democrats, and okay. At the time, did not want to give a grown man access to government funds, an able-bodied grown man. Okay, so that was decided by the powers that be. Now, the reason that it affected the Black community so bad. Oh, one more thing. That practice ended federally in 1968. So they could no longer do that legally by 1968. And that system, that rule was brought down by a Black woman. In 1968, took them to federal court, took them to the Supreme Court in Alabama. Okay? So now that we have those facts, the reason that Black households were so affected by that particular rule, and then the mental afterward, because the welfare system, just like the education system, is controlled by white women. So even after that rule fell in 1968, the mentality of the person in charge giving out the check did not change. Okay? Now, that was across the board. The reason that the Black household was so affected by that rule was because exactly what Earl said, that the Black man was shut out of industry, by the industry, not by the government, by the industry itself. So if you lost your job as a Black man, it was so much harder to get another. And the female income at that particular time, where we're talking about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 80s, all that stuff, could not cover an entire household, including children. We just weren't getting paid enough as a maid under the table. We weren't. So it's not that they moved the Black man out of the house. That is an inconsistent and untrue story. It was welfare was one of the factors that maybe contributed to somebody grandpappy not coming back to the house. One, there were like 30 other factors that went into that at the time, including the fact that skilled labor was hard to get for Black men. It was hard to stay employed, and it was hard to move up, therefore creating more wealth for your family. Just facts, no opinion yet.
Okay, I just got educated. So what did a woman end in 1968?
A woman in 1968 ended, so a woman had 4 kids. She was a widow. And she had 4 kids. And she was having an affair with a gentleman down the street after her husband died. But she was seeing a gentleman call her down the street. Somehow that got back to the welfare office that she had a gentleman coming to visit her, so they denied her benefits. She got in line with some kind of legal defense and took that welfare office in Alabama to court. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And in that case, they decided, now mind you, the basis of her argument was that this man don't even live here and this is not the children's father. Okay. But how they decided, what they decided on was that ADIC, aid to dependent children, was not supposed to be used discriminately towards children when their own father had passed away. A non-biological male was not responsible for making sure that a child ate that was not his. So just because the mother was having sexual relations with the man does not mean that man was obligated to take care of her 4 kids. And that's how they abolished the rule in 1968. So by the end of 1968, by October of 1968, you can look this up right on the Google, right on the phone. You don't even got to do a deep dive. By the end of 1968 in October, that rule had been federally abolished, meaning that a man could be in the home and his family receive federal benefits.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
federal
understand.
benefits.
So is that in certain states? Because I know personally, see, this is when when you get to the grassroots, maybe this guy has a lawsuit or this woman, now is welfare different from housing assistance? Is that different? Is that a different thing?
Yes, because
Now,
certain projects made it so they had a rule. Because what would happen in the projects is, if you let, in the mentality of the people in charge of the projects, if you let men in, you let violence in. If you let men in, you let drugs in. So the reason that the projects are different. No, I didn't say I said that. This is not the opinion part of my speech.
The information that you're just giving to me, I heard men. Now we know who's there. Black men.
That's right.
Men in drugs. Men in violence. Like violence. Women don't do drugs and women don't commit violence.
It's rude. It's rude. It's a rude premise.
Okay.
So let's go back to the housing situation. So everybody does know why housing was created, right?
Yeah, we actually, yeah.
Do you guys actually know why they came up with it?
Tell us.
So it was originally for the veterans. It was originally for veterans. The housing projects were originally for veterans. They were coming back from the war to have a place to stay with their families when they returned. It started to be a Black thing later in the 60s, but they were built like in the 50s, originally for the veterans. And yeah, it'd be a bunch of no goods around.
And that's coming from a housing property manager who dealt in it for over 10 years. So yeah.
Right.
The truth is, in personal experience, when you did let men into the housing projects, it got a lot worse. In personal experience. But what I'm saying is, as a rule, housing projects and welfare is two different things. And housing projects can make their own rules, which they did. So, yeah. And I also said, Earl, remember that just because the rule changed in 1968, doesn't mean the mentality of the person in charge of cutting the check changed.
Right. So right. But men were always allowed in housing. But it was originally made for men. For men to bring their families.
Yep.
So they were never excluded from housing.
And then somehow it changed to
they were never excluded from
housing. Is there a man here? Has your daddy been here? And the mama saying, "Don't you tell him your daddy been here."
But but there was a difference in that. So yes, they would allow them to have housing. However, where the tricky part came in is when even though they had that housing, they still needed those welfare benefits. So that lady went out and she applied for them welfare benefits. So therefore, then they have to say, "Well, y'all can't get these benefits unless this nigga get out this house." Even though the house was in his name because it was made for veterans to bring their family, they said, "We're gonna give you this housing, but you better not ask us for our paycheck. Because if you need both, then somebody got to go." Is what was being said. So in that was almost like it to me. So just hearing the story and being provided with the facts from both scenarios, it still sounds like to me it was a setup to be set out. Because if a white woman did that same thing, a white veteran came back from the war and he brought his family into this housing project, then that white man can still go out and find him a job. So he don't need them welfare benefits because he got free housing. But that Black man can't come and bring his family. That same Black veteran ain't going to be able to come and bring his family into this housing project and go get them benefits. Because nigga, if you get these benefits, get the fuck out of our house. I'm sorry, I'm cussing my podcast.
Now let me tell you what that perpetuates now. Now that is, you gonna choose him over me, which is wrong. No, what the woman's doing is choosing to take care of the children. I'm sorry, but what that system does, is now it puts that man and that
against
Black
that woman
at odds now.
Yep.
Now
But
I'm
they
just
was
out
gonna be
here.
at odds anyway, because if you
And
can't
so,
afford to take care of her, you're gonna be at odds
but
anyway.
if I'm able to get
True,
assistance with
Cherie.
you
True.
together as a family,
Right.
we're doing that together. I don't feel like the man is kicking me out on my ass, but see, I displace it and not realizing that the system is made it that way.
Created
You're
that.
not kicking me out. In my mind, I'm messed up. It's all messed up. But I look at it now like I get it messed up and I displace it and say she's doing it.
Yep.
No, she's
Yep.
not.
Well,
No,
well,
she's
this
not
is
doing it.
so. If we could, so that's where it comes in on us being able to rely on the black man and feel protected by the black man, and we don't. We feel more protected by the
Right.
government that they'll provide a place for me
True.
and my kids to have. If I lose my income, I still got a place to stay. If I lose
True.
my income, this nigga might walk out on me with
True.
Kiki up the street.
But do we
True.
see how systematically they put those laws into place to create this thing that we're experiencing now? And this
I'm not gonna blame that on the white man, because I'm gonna blame that on the black man, because the black man has to be strong in himself and stand in his ground, that you're gonna be the provider, you're gonna be the protector, you're gonna be the person for this black family, regardless of whatever. Period.
very true, very
Now,
true.
And
now,
that's
We
what
go,
now
the
we
do we
are
black
in
go,
men
the
used to do
opinion
do
back
we
part.
in the
go and
day.
bomb they? So do
They
all the
used
black
to
men
do
get
that
together
back.
and go bomb they Wall Street? Is that how we get that done?
No, no.
Black men used to do that back in the day. They'll provide for their family too. But then they had another family over on the other block that they
Yeah.
was providing for that too.
That's
I
a
was
different
here.
story. That's a
I'll tell
But
you.
that's
different
why I said
topic.
go back to the black man making a decision that this is the person I'm gonna
Also,
be with. This
more
is the family I'm gonna
opportunity was
do.
there. Also, a child can be as smart as they want to be. They can be the genius in the school. If the opportunity is not there, they're not good. It don't matter. Doesn't matter. They're just walking around smart for nothing. So I'm able-bodied. I'm intelligent. I'm strong. I breathe well. Where's the opportunity? We'll make your opportunity. Okay, cool. It's easy to say. Now, I'm not saying it never stopped my drive. It never stopped my hustle. It never stopped my motivation, my innovation, and my willingness to do what I had to do. I'm not saying I lost that. I'm just speaking about what is.
Right.
So, it's not the woe is me. I'm just going to stop doing it because of what it is. This is just, we see this every day. We know these are the facts. But it's like, what was part of them getting what they got? Bombing Tulsa. We ain't never bombed shit. We ain't bombed a goddamn thing. So
Well,
it would be great in a in the fantasizing world. Black men, we all go, you know how they got that? How they get it? What's their formula? Let's
Take
go
it.
blow their shit up.
Take it.
That's how they got it.
they done took everything that they done got.
Right.
It's the
Exactly.
American way.
But even still, being able to change the dynamics of a situation, you have to know the root of the problem. And just these facts that came out today, it helped to bring awareness to the roots of the problem. So now we can see why in Black homes there is so much division. It is systematically created by the government. So whether or not we stay there and we allow Black men to keep falling into that same pattern and taking that, well, it's their fault, it's their fault. No, we can't just sit there. Now that we know their agenda, this is where we can come in and we can begin solutions on how to change and how to progress from here. But I can guarantee you, most people didn't realize these facts that we've uncovered today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Because a lot of it, some of it I knew, but not. But when you actually hear, like when you read it is one thing, but when you hear it being presented, you see how
when you hear a whole story, it changes the mind. It changes the brain chemistry, and it's supposed to. When you hear all the information, and I think what has happened with us, now this is the opinion section of my speech. I think that what has happened with us is when you have 400 to 500 years of oppression as a man, And they take away your family, they take away your woman, they take away your identity, your language, your religion, and continually tell you who you are and who you can't become. Who else is he going to take that out on? Because I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. Who else is he going to take that out on? And when a man cannot take care of his children, when a man cannot provide for his wife, I don't think men today don't want to do that. I think they know they can't for one reason or another. And that breeds fear, and fear breeds anger, and anger breeds violence and destruction. And until we figure out the bottom part, that's why I keep saying this is not going to be fixed. None of this can be fixed until Black men take back their communities, build new ones, and then keep other people out.
Right.
Because when you have that sense of self, then you can connect to someone else, and then you can create life and sustain it. But until the fear is gone, I don't know.
Right. And I agree with that.
Taking back your community means declaring an active state of war, though. I mean, there's no other way. There's no other way. They can't systematically.
True.
It's declaring a state of war.
Okay.
Are you scared?
Right. That's what I'm like. What's the hold up with that?
Let me say this. I know to say this.
So I don't think everybody's stating a fact to their opinion, and that's what I was doing. So it's not about me being scared. I was adding to the statement that was being made.
Oh no, that wasn't personal. Not Eric. Is Eric scared?
Yeah.
Is the Black man scared?
Right. Like it's
not
like,
Eric. Not Eric.
That's the thing. No, that's what I was trying to do.
It is a declaration of war. Are we scared?
It was something that you said. Remember, I said it's something that you said because you said it on a previous podcast that we had. You said that we had to go to an active state of war. It's going to take war to change this situation. And I'm agreeing with you. It definitely is going to take war to change this situation.
And I'm asking, my follow-up is, are you scared?
I don't know. We seem to be taking it right now. Most seem to step back and take it. Most men are becoming emasculated to the point to where they think they're females, and they acting more like a female than they are a man. I mean, I don't know. This whole generation has started to progress in the opposite direction. So,
very true.
All the women's mouth went.
Very true.
Look at Cherie. Everybody went.
Hey.
That alone is an act of war.
So you know what, Earl? But you know what, Earl? This is a good space to stop here and pick up on the feminine males next time, right here.
Okay.
Because that's good. That's good. That was good, Eric.
Feminine males.
That was really good.
This is a good space because Eric, you did just bring up a very big factor on where we are headed, and that effeminization that we see happening, that can be good for us.
Right.
You know that starts in school with the handwriting. You know that starts in school with the handwriting.
Okay, we won't start it. We won't start it.
No.
Because we can get started.
But we're gonna do that for next time, though.
Let's save it because you about to, because Dr. Ron G is about to give y'all some really deep factual jewels out here when she done started in with that handwriting. And she's about to take it back. So we gonna
y'all need to read up on Dr. Valentine. Get with that Dr. Valentine.
We gonna pause it. We gonna pause it because she's ready to go. We gonna keep that energy. We got something to roll on. We gonna need y'all to join us again next week because y'all see this has been going and it's gonna keep going and we getting into it. When we start there next time, we are going to get to the part where we talk about more of the resolution, more how we think, and we should all think we could get to a part where we recognize we're being distracted and how we get to a point to where we can start coming back together and recognize and get to start a resolution. Until later, peace, love, in the hood, revolution.
right.
Black God, Lord. Lord. Uh-huh. Anthem knocking, my music be banging and knocking. In this ghetto opera, it's the Phantom of the Chakra. Hail Mary, ready to ride, ready to die. Life after death, I guess I'm big in your pocket. Caught up in a struggle, I'm hearing voices from broader than spirits of elders, ancestors nowadays to me talking. Walk a mile in my shoes, protesting and marching, no back in the bus, we now busting back for Rosa Parks, man. Neck nooses, water hose, fire crosses, dogs barking, hitting, whipping, club me, but still you can't stop me. Wanna be me, but y'all moving too sloppy. Born with this precision, y'all genetics just too sloppy. Dark gone serious, A, B, and C, been dancing with the stars, so y'all ain't seeing me. Seeing through the eyes of Haru, Osiris, and Aset, kings, queens, and royalty. Now I know who I be. Black God. Lord. Now inshallah, kamikaze, ride and die. Revolution, won't be televised. Left us on the ocean floor, now we on the ride. Ground of a lion, tiger in our eyes. From the deepest valleys to the heights of Zion. Tired of my mommy, sisters, and my daughter's pride. Protect the holy grace, face Black Madonna. Buffalo soldier, dread like Rasta. The black skin, the red blood, the lush green land. Bamawa, Bawa, Adawa, gotta harvest the land. Spiritual battle drummer, performing the war dance. Tribal Elohim, all on in my DNA strand. Peace to Mandela, Steve Biko, and Marcus Garvey. Black Moses, let my people go or go ahead and charge me. Harold Bull, bronze feet, y'all gotta cheat. Atonement upon you now, bow down and kiss my feet. Black God. I'm feeling like Black Angel, blowing that trumpet. Throw your hands if you hear where I'm coming from. Motherland, rock, bass, release in the air. Clap that snare drum. Clap that snare drum. Clap that snare drum. Clap that snare drum. Motherland, rock, bass, release, snare drum. Clap that snare drum. Clap that snare drum, yeah. Clap that